right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zil. It's great to have you all here. I have had quite a hectic week on my end, so I'm really excited to be taking a bit of time to have an interesting conversation, because that's what we like to do here. I am joined by my illustrious co-host, K-Libra. How are you doing, K-Libra?
Doing okay. I am going through my Steam games and getting through, and there's been a good experience. Honey Bear is lovely, and they have given me many games to go through. But yeah, a few of them like really short and good. Like the recent one that I beat last night was a game called Aspire Ina's Tale, and short puzzle platformer, very pretty. But yeah, stuff like that. Golf Club Wasteland was also really good. Now, they didn't buy me those games, but they pointed me in the direction of them, and now I have like the other ones to get through. And now I'm like trying demos that I've had downloaded, like Rhythm Quest, which is in development. But the demo is very thorough. They're all worth trying. Need a good rhythm game and a good puzzle game, I think.
Oh yeah, puzzles are always good. It's funny, actually. I finished. I'm way behind on this. I finished Miles Morales last night, which I'd been putting off because I had just gotten distracted and like been playing other things, and then Spider-Man 2 is coming out soon, and I was like, shit, I need to finish this game before Spider-Man 2 comes out, because I'm gonna be playing that's for sure. You can't throw Venom at me and not get my interest.
Yeah, it's a similar situation where I've been damn, what was it? I think I think I'm just like feeling like, oh no, if I don't get this out of the way, I'm never going to play it because it's a big game. Like the Death Stranding director's cut. I already went through Death Stranding so much, and oh my god. Anyway, lots of game talk to be had. You want a game podcast too?
No, but I will say, obviously, Spider-Man 2 is going to be great because there's going to be TF involved. We've got the Lizard's going to be in it, and also Venom's in it. So I'm just like, this is clearly the game for me from my favorite gaming studio. So
I also fall ass backwards into games that happen to have transformation in it. If you're not falling into it that much, I think you need to broaden your horizons.
Which we always support. So, anyways, we've got a really exciting guest here today. But before we get to them, just a quick note as always, if you want to support us, you can go over to patreon.com/TFTuesdayPod. It's so wonderful when people join us and support us. It helps enable us talk about video games with TF and a variety of other topics, including a topic that was voted on by our patrons that we'll be talking about later on this episode, which I'm excited to talk about. Our patrons are the best patrons, and if you want to be as cool as them, you can join us. I don't know. Do you have anything to say about the Patreon, Libra?
I think it's worth it, and the more people that are in it, the more we get to grow our options and just get a little more ambitious with what we're doing. I have appreciated making more out of the YouTube uploads, for instance, and getting creative with those and giving something worthwhile for people to not just listen to but to see. And I think admittedly, it helps when we get more support, because that makes me want to keep upping that game. I still want to do it, but it takes time. So so we need the support to keep making things better.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's a great point. I think the video editing that has now graced all of your YouTube screens was made in part possible by patrons. So thank you to all of our wonderful patrons.
Yeah.
But yeah, enough about that. I'm really excited to have a special guest here, a returning guest who actually joined us during season 1. So very excited to have AceSential with us. So I don't know, Ace, would you like to introduce yourself?
Howdy, everyone. My name's AceSential, also known as TFSential in the transformation community, aka that one person that dedicated an entire decade of their TF community career drawing TFs of one particular franchise. Good to see you all again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back, and really excited to have you on. I know that the last episode where we had you, we got to talk about some really interesting topics, and I think we've got a great slate for this episode as well.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Yeah. One of the things that I guess, just going kind of right into it, obviously you're really well known for drawing character transformations, be it into like canon characters or like original characters. And I guess, one of the questions I had on my mind even since we last talked was how that kind of ties into your form of self-expression. So I guess I wanted to ask, first of all, is it a form of self-expression for you? And what is it about these other characters that you feels like fits aspects of yourself?
Oh, yeah, totally. Honestly, I'll be frank. When I first started doing this, I started getting into drawing myself as a TF subject more and more. I was like, there's no way in hell that anyone else is going to appreciate this but me. It's just, all this art is just about just myself turning into characters that I like and dig. But honestly, I'm really surprised at how it ended up turning out. A lot of people connected with that to a strong degree, stronger than I ever expected. And so I would say yes. Using myself as a TF subject in my art is very much a form of self-expression. I find that we as people embody particular traits and ideas, and I feel like that a lot of the characters that we see in media are exemplifications or amplifications of particular traits. So that's one of the reasons why we can see ourselves in them and we relate to them. And in a way, the way that I do go about doing my TF art is kind of acknowledging or expressing particular parts of myself through the characters that I draw TFs of. To that end, I can drop in a little something here. Do you know Scott McCloud?
No.
Scott McCloud is a comic author who wrote a lot about comic books, about like understanding them as an art form unto themselves, way before comics were really considered a serious medium to be engaged with. One of the things that I really particularly like in one of his chapters in his book, Understanding Comics, is about cartoon characters. Like, what is it about cartoon characters that we really click and engage with? And his argument is that through the matter of amplification through simplification, we don't see cartoon characters just as another person, but we see ourselves in that cartoon character, And to that end, that's why that's kind of what I kind of aim for, what I encapsulate with my art, trying to embody aspects of something we admire or appreciate, or maybe we just find fascinating in another character written by someone else, and having it be expressed through yourself by becoming them, and having that aspect of yourself amplified through them.
Right. That's a really fascinating way of thinking about it. I hadn't seen this comic before, and I was just kind of flipping through it as you were kind of talking about it. And one of the things that stands out for me is how clear it is that, there is this through line within our own like heads as people between connecting ourselves through progressively simpler and simpler, I guess, kind of forms. And so obviously in the comic, it's kind of using just a very blank, straight, like stick lines face with no like embellishment or anything like that. And how we can still kind of make connections to something as simple as that. And then, of course, that can then manifest itself into more complex designs, but to kind of your original point, it can also then pull out specific aspects of yourself that you can relate to them. Do you think there's any like specific traits that you can think of that go with like each individual character that you map out to, or is it a broader, like you see a character and you say, well, they have this, and this, and therefore I can relate to that?
It's parts of it is in terms of relatability. For instance, like my longtime mainstay, Twilight Sparkle, I definitely see a lot of myself in, especially her earlier incarnations, snarky, but also a bit naive, wide-eyed, and an idealist. She tries to push things off in out of arm's reach, but at the same time she can't help herself but be enamored by the things around her as she learns about them. And I especially saw a lot of myself, especially who I was back in high school, in that, because you're a high schooler, you're a teenager. It's like, the world sucks. Everything is crap. But at the same time, you get me into something I'm really into, and I'll just be all over it. And it's like I love learning new things. So I saw that, but it's not even just about necessarily always embodying something that you see in yourself, but sometimes about embodying something that you wish you were more of. You know?
Yeah.
So, how do I say, a character like, say, Tango the Lemur, because I've been into the Sonic comics recently. She's outgoing, brash, she's not afraid to say what's on her mind, and she's also very brave. And it's like, man, I wish I could be like that too. I feel like that in terms of bravery, I'll probably be somewhere in the average, but it would be really cool to be someone that is not afraid to jump in there to do something that needs to get done,
Right.
It's funny because Tangle is inspired by Sonic and his crew. Mm-hmm. So the inspiration that she gives you is the inspiration she got from the biggest heroes.
Definitely. It's a nice rolling on effect, always feeding downwards and always multiplying on itself.
Yep.
It's nice.
But that's also part of the be the change you want to see in the world sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's you need that enabling sometimes, which is, I mean, what Tangle ends up getting. She could have gone and started doing these things, but she also wouldn't have survived at the beginning if she wasn't close to the people who actually can survive those things. Mm-hmm. The IDW comics are very good, by the way.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you haven't checked them out, I was just middle of the line regarding Sonic, but after I read the comics, I was like, oh, I think I know have something I'm going to be obsessed about drawing over for the next few years now.
I'll tell you, because I read a good chunk of the Archie comics, which people can say whatever they want, but there was really cool and fun things. Yes, I even remember in the Ken Pender stuff. Maybe nowadays I'll be like, what the fuck was this? But I was fascinated by it. And then after a while, Ian Flynn took over, and everything got remade. The Mega Man Sonic crossover is actually part of how they were able to remake everything. And then, there was an interesting time. But now we got IDW, and now we have Tangle inspiring this artist here.
Hello. Yeah. Oh, God. I mean, heck, the whole my recent fascination with the Sonic IDW comics got me to make a Sonic OC. A Sonic OC. I feel like I'm in 2007 all over again. I'm catching up with a part of me that I never thought I'd ever do.
Hey, look, man, I played Sonic Forces, and that character creator was fun. Okay.
Oh yeah, it is.
Sonic Forces character creator was shockingly good.
Here, I'll drop my Sonic OC. There we go.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
A Stoat, huh? All right.
Stoat is a very good choice, I gotta say.
I was initially going to go for a Weasel, but I was like, there's already a Weasel.
No, there isn't.
Not exactly.
He's not a Weasel.
Yeah, he's not a Weasel anymore. And I was
he's never been a Weasel. That's the thing. I don't know what happened with the translation, but he was never supposed to be a Weasel. So people were like, "What's going on here?" I don't want to turn this into a Sonic podcast. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I will say it's a big part of a lot of what Ace does. I mean, I've seen you've done some great Blaze TFs. I gotta say, Blaze is very good. So.
Oh yeah, no, I love. She became a muse very quickly, and where is that? I have something where it's if I had a nickel for every time that Ace became a purple magic princess that needed to learn the value of friendship, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that weird. It's very simple shit. You see an element that you like, and there you go. It's like, oh, they mixed these 2 elements again. I'm going to look into it. Then you happen to like it.
Yes.
It's actually not that weird. It keeps happening
I think
with
it's hilarious.
me. Yeah, no, it's Yeah, that's just the way we are. You know how you said that, you tend to see yourself in other characters and things. It's not necessarily seeing ourselves, but we're looking for qualities that we enjoy, whether we see them in ourselves or not. So you're going to look at things like, oh, does this character have these things? Even on a surface level thing, it's the most basic thing, but you're gonna look into it because it's there, at least a little bit.
Exactly.
It's the way we are. We look for the things we like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will say that, when I think about the characters that I like, I actually have my, I guess the ones I connect with the most. I have Funkos of them in front of me on my computer here. But I think a lot about that kind of concept in the sense of there's somewhere I see a very strong direct relationship to, say Ratchet, and then there's others where it's more yes, I see some part of myself in them, but there's also an aspirational quality to them, like Garrus. So it's interesting how we can tie into these kind of depictions by someone else's someone else came up with these characters, someone else kind of birthed them, so to speak, into the world, and they are then kind of put forward, and people who have no connection to the original person can have such a strong resonance with these characters that we form these attachments and we form these connections. We're making transformation art out of them and what have you. And I think there's something really cool about how that at its core is really a creative meeting of the minds, as it were.
I feel like Carl Jung would have an absolute field day with people like us, being he's talking about archetypes. Well, buddy, let me tell you, we're doing much more than just embodying archetypes over here.
Yeah, I completely agree. And so, I guess building on that, I know that in the last time you were on the show, we talked a bunch about your asexuality, and that was something that you and I actually talked about quite a bit, not only there, but actually at the Anthrocon panel, which was a lot of fun. So for people who didn't know, Ace was one of the cameos asking questions there in that episode. Go back to season 4, episode 1. It's a good one. But anyways, obviously a lot of the art that you've kind of put forward, there's a lot of characters that don't fall necessarily into that sexuality. So, for example, I know that one of your OCs, Rowena, is bi. And so I was curious to know what your thought process is behind expressing alternative sexualities through other characters, and how that kind of ties back to what we were just talking about.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Here, I have this one sequence. Man, I've been meaning to publish this. This might be a little too lewd to share with on your channel, but I'll just share it here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can kind of see that being embodied in this sequence, especially in the 4th frame in the background.
Yes.
Yeah. The way I see it is that Rowena, when I made her, very much emerged as an alternate version of myself. As what if I didn't go down into doing My Little Pony stuff? What if I decided to stick with the anime and manga route that I was which I got my start as an artist way back when. And so in that, there's a bit of an acknowledgement that who I am as a person is very much shaped not just by things set down at birth, but also by my circumstances and what affected me as I was growing up. And I can very much see that had things played out differently, I just might have been a different sexuality. Things might have happened differently in which I felt more comfortable expressing aspects of my sexuality that I otherwise might not have. Right. And so, the way I see it, my asexuality now is very much a result of just never really having been developed that interest growing up, and just thinking, what if something had come along then which I did develop that interest? maybe things would have played out very, very differently, and I would consider myself maybe bisexual or homosexual or whatever. It's just, for me, it's more about like just considering that identity and personality is very fluid, and
Right.
it's subject to change just depending on our circumstances, and no one's set in stone. Give yourself enough time, and better understanding who you are as a person, and you might discover aspects of yourself that you might not have realized were aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
So I got questions about that. If that's how you feel, that personalities are fluid, then you said you're asexual, and that the events of your life have put you in this category. Does that mean you are set in that category, or do you also think that you might be subject to change from here on, because life isn't going to stop? So
Yeah, no, for sure.
Do you think you're settled in that?
I think right now, like asexual, like being an asexual, very much best encompasses like who I am, who I am in this current moment, in this where I am in my life right now.
Right.
Maybe in a couple of years, I'll think of it differently. In a way, me making Rowena as a character is a way to explore aspects of myself that I otherwise might not have. Especially if I feel like that a label is prescriptive rather than descriptive, I might have just held on to that and never thought otherwise. It's like, okay, I'm happy, I'm comfortable here, but here, I'll make a character who can express these things that I myself would not necessarily be comfortable expressing with who I am right now. But here is someone who is technically, in a way, a part of me, is a reflection of me, and yet she can be someone who explores these things, And I think it's opened up some interesting doors for me. If not necessarily in terms of like personal experiences. I've heard more stories from other people, had conversations that I otherwise might not have had if I was just be like, oh yeah, no, I'm just the asexual dude, and I'm not interested in any of that stuff. And I think it's opened up a lot of doors, and also had me thinking about like who I am, how I present myself, and maybe down the line that could be subject to change.
So does that mean that you also use transformation as a buffer to comfortably explore things? Because I would imagine that otherwise you wouldn't feel very inclined to think about that. Do you think you'd be comfortable exploring aspects of your personality or sexuality without the art that you make?
Oh yeah, definitely that my art definitely helps in that regard. The way that I draw myself is not truly myself, but a representation, an avatar that I can kind of inflict a whole litany of bullshit on as I feel appropriate or needed to. If
Right.
just to try out some things,
Yeah.
might never, because maybe I would say that maybe I'm not brave enough to explore it in real life. But there's a version of me that can set from pen to paper that can explore these things, and go in directions and may go further along that I myself may not necessarily be comfortable to do.
I understand that. And exploration is something that involves doing things in spite of fear. That's bravery, that's courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's what you do in spite of it, in light of it.
Oh, yeah.
Brave people are often quite scared, more often than you think, and they can be extremely terrified of things.
One of the things that I wanted to kind of ask about, we've been talking a lot about how you've kind of explored things and like elements through transformation. And I guess I'm curious to ask this question because I've definitely had experiences where I explored certain topics and people made assumptions about me. So my question, I guess, is do you have any concern about using yourself within these like explorations and then like how others might perceive you for doing those? Because we do have obviously a very I like to think, somewhat open-minded community here. But, people sometimes will make assumptions. And so I guess my question is, when you are exploring like these other alternative sexualities or characters or other things like that, do you worry about how people will then perceive you back for the art that you're depicting?
Well, as it is, the one of the biggest things about art is that it's not just a one-way street. I draw something and I put it out there, and I put myself into it for sure. But the thing is that a piece of art also involves the person coming to it and looking at it and drawing from their own experiences, who they are as a person and what they value. That they're going to see that reflected in the art as well. I think that's part of one of the reasons why a lot of people also connected with my work, because in seeing someone really put themselves into the work so consistently and repeatedly, they could also see themselves in a way that way. Like, they could see themselves being that person in the work. But yeah, for sure. There's going to be people who are going to make assumptions about me, about who I am, because of what I draw and how I go about drawing it. And yeah, I would say that there was some anxiety about that way back when, especially when I started going to conventions, and it became more and more known that I was the person who draws the transformation stuff in the pony community. Yeah. But I think after a while, it just came mainly to the conclusion that people are always going to make assumptions about who they think you are. Even the people who you're the closest to don't have a 100% accurate picture of you as a person. They have their conception of you from how they've met you, the circumstances that you've met, how you've hung out, and that's just basically a natural, normal part of how people see each other all the time. You can never truly know a person. And as for what my work is, I'm just content with the fact that I just try to put myself, my enthusiasm, my interest out there, and hope that that's what comes through. I know I've had several people over the years have told me, listen, man, I don't like My Little Pony stuff. Like, I don't like it at all. Sometimes I actively dislike it, but I like your work. And it's like,
who the fuck cares? I have to rant about this, because this happened also with like episodes. It happens with arts. It happens with a lot of things. If you are going to somebody to tell them directly, I don't like that you do this, but it's okay, I don't mind that you keep doing it. What did you want to express that for? What the fuck else do you think is like, oh, I just wanted to give you feedback. Feedback for what? Hoping that I'll change it? Don't say you're going to not like something and then be like, no, it's okay that you keep making it. Then what the fuck did you tell me that for? You'd like me to stop making it? You want me to make something new? I fucking hate it when people do that.
No. For the way that I've seen it, the way that people have approached me regarding it, and the way that I've seen it, how that they've carried across, is that they see something in my work that is valuable, even if the subject matter isn't to their taste.
I mean, they can say that, but that wasn't the impression I got with what you said in the first place. That people were just like, oh,
no. That's generally like the general gist that I've gotten. Some people, I have friends of mine who they really like my work, even though they actually don't like. They're not very fond of the particular subject matters. I have friends who are not really into ponies. They don't like Sonic. They don't like some of the characters that I draw, but they go to my work because they see they're not looking at it for the characters. They're looking at it for me, what I bring to the work. That maybe it's a perspective that another artist doesn't have, or what.
Well, that's one can only hope.
Yeah.
Because that's what I try to give to people. I don't need to tell you or anybody the things that I don't really care for very much. If I'm going to be paying attention and rooting around through your work, do I really need to come to you and say, hey, listen, man, the pony stuff, not for me. But I think that's kind of a fucking waste of... I think that's kind of a waste of breath. It's almost like a defensive thing to me. If you have to lead with, I don't like this thing that you do normally, but, it's it's kind of a weird thing to me, and I think that people don't really know the place of when using that. I have enjoyed that sort of sentiment when people lead with that as saying like, you got me into this, or you make me appreciate this, which I normally do not. But but I'm very careful, and I'm very touchy about that sort of thing, because it can come across that way, because you're busy expressing yourself and having fun, because as much as art is an expression, and I still think that you always put yourself into all the things you make, you always are just trying to have some kind of fun, and I wouldn't really want people coming to me and just saying that sort of thing needlessly. I would rather say, you know what, I really appreciate the stuff you make, I really do. And then you could maybe say, oh, so are you into My Little Pony as well or something? And I could be like, nah, that's not for me. And that's fine. I think people need to just, it bothers me, because people like you are the ones making these impacts on people's lives, as melodramatic as it sounds, but
it's true though.
Yeah, and yeah, I just really am super touchy about that, because it's a lot of pressure sometimes, especially if you start to make it known that like, oh my God, your art is so important to me. I don't know. Sometimes you feel the urge, or maybe the obligation. There are many people who talk about giving back to the community and things like that, and I don't think people really understand what the fuck that means. And I know I got on this rant, but it's mostly because I like the stuff that you make in general. I like your approach. I can appreciate it. I see the effort. I see the execution. I don't really need to lead with, this stuff isn't for me most of the time.
No, I really appreciate that, especially because I know I followed your work for a very long time, and I never just outright said it. Partly because I was also like, I draw such cartoony stuff. I don't know if they'd be into it, but it. I remember you commented on one of my pieces on Mastodon on transfer.social, and I was like, oh god, that means a lot coming. That means a lot coming from K-Libra. So I really appreciated that.
You're welcome, but that's the point, right? It's picking up on what you're trying to express. Circling back to making assumptions about people, it's very difficult to not make assumptions about people when they make art. Art is time intensive, work intensive. If you're spending your time and effort doing that, people are going to wonder why you're doing it. I mean, AI image generation is popular because they don't have to fucking spend the time. I don't give a fuck what you say. You're not spending the time. But if you're spending the time, but if you're spending the time and effort to make these things, you start to wonder, well, what is it about you? Certainly, these must mean some things, or point to something. And it's funny that you say things like that about me, like, oh, you didn't know I could like any of this more toony stuff. I can like a lot of things. I know what I like, and I look for more of the same, as we all do. But it's kind of like when I'm sharing images with Honey Bear, because we're partners too, and they're like, I never imagined you'd be into like this cute and colorful stuff. I'm like, I like lots of things. Also, like what do I have these guys for? You
are a big Sonic fan, so
I don't.
That aligns.
I don't do like the alternative, realistic, like horror art of like these guys. I want them to be colorful and fun. It's I think it's okay to draw some conclusions to people, but be open to people telling you, no, that's not how it is.
I think yeah, and that's enough. That's what kind of like what's going to lead to what I was going to say next, is that people can make the assumptions that they have about me and what I'm like, what I'm into and stuff for my work, and I'll just have to be okay with that, because they won't truly know me until they actually meet me and say hello, and then they can draw a better conclusion about the kind of person I am then,
Yeah. That's such a great point. I gotta say, like if we obviously have our own artistic outputs, but like you said, until you actually have a conversation with the person, you don't really know them. And sure, you might take some conclusions off of their art, but unless you actually have a conversation with them, whatever conclusions you're drawing are parasocial at best and completely skewed at worst. So, yeah.
Honestly, that's actually one of the reasons why I always keep a bit of an arm's length approach to my TFSential account, because that's one of the reasons why I tend to just be humorous with my TFSential account on Twitter, as opposed to where on my AceSential account I'd be speaking more as myself, I would say,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense to me. I know that, the way that I approach social media, I mean, I have a rule with Twitter, which obviously I don't actually follow, but my number one rule for Twitter is don't tweet. And the way that I kind of embody that is I don't really share much about like my personal thoughts or anything like that. I really just post my art, and I'll comment on other people's art. I do that, of course, but I don't actually like tweet my own thoughts generally. And so, whatever someone is seeing from that is just like, this is my art. You can see from my likes and comments there are obviously certain things that I like, but I'm not really sharing much about myself. And I think that a lot of the times, this is going, I guess, a bit on a tangent, but, I think people make assumptions around how someone presents themselves on social media and assume that's how they always are. And we all have a very different way, like our own unique ways of connecting with social media. Some of us do put most of our things on there, and there's plenty of us who don't and keep it at arm's length, like you said. And again, make assumptions from that at your own risk, because we are all multidimensional, and you're never going to get all of those dimensions from, one Twitter account or one social media account or whatever it is that you want to call it.
I'd like to build on that a little bit more, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right, so everybody can laugh, especially Zil, because when I was getting to know Zil better, I was like, wait, you like chicks too? Yeah. I'm like, I would not have fucking known, because all I ever see from you is dicks. Like, it's you, it's other dicks, it's guys. It's like, no, I don't just like guys.
The audience can't see it, but
I'm
the audience can't see it, but I'm turning red right now.
But it was really funny, because the all right, so I know that we're speaking about assumptions, but one of the things about the internet the internet allows us to get away with really laser focusing an impression that we want to give other people. So you have to balance what they are very loudly screaming, what some people are very loudly screaming all the time, versus this is what you see, but is it all there? And you can't always tell the difference depending on how people carry themselves online. So that is why it's kind of difficult, and that's also why it's good, if like Ace, you're trying to mitigate parasociality and everything like that. But it's tough. It's tough until you talk to somebody. And I know that it happened to me a bunch whenever I was doing art streams on Picardo, and people would just come up and say, like, oh, you like Monster Girl, so certainly you like this. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You don't know what I mean. And that's with me, like, doing very minimal stuff. So it's funny. You can get sweeping assumptions based on the things you decide to show all the time. You can get sweeping assumptions on basically nothing. So either, oh, you're very clearly this type of person, or, oh, you're very mysterious, and I can only gather from the kind of things that you post that you're very much the kind of person about this sort of thing. And it's like, and that affects people differently. And it's harder for women, but
absolutely.
And I think about that too. But in general, it's just really, really hard to manage. And I just, I think the reason to just go on this as long as I am is that you can make people in this community very uncomfortable if you lean into that really hard, or if you assert that somebody is somehow not telling the truth about themselves when they say, no, that's not what I'm really about. Yeah.
Like somehow that they know you better than you know yourself.
Yes.
I was like,
yes.
Either that or that they just say, you're fucking lying. Like, thanks. All right, dickhead.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's a whole thing. And, I guess to what you were just saying, Libra, I think that the way in which we present ourselves online can just mean so many different things, but at the end of the day, it's not a reflection of the whole person, and it can take, having a conversation with someone to realize that they're not just all about dick and pussies, like that's just sometimes you have to have that conversation and then you will be illuminated. So
you don't like man titties? Those dicks and pussies for you? You just neglect everything else?
No, I like everything.
Shallow.
Everything good.
You shallow.
Everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yes, all at once.
All at once.
I guess to go back to because I want to make sure we don't lose sight of it. In terms of expressing yourself through the other characters, there was a question I had that I felt like you might have a unique answer to. When we talk about elements of expression, and we've already just talked about all the ways we do and don't express ourselves online, what kind of elements of yourself do you feel are best conveyed through being an OC or a canon? Are there any elements that you feel like are true to yourself but are expressed even better when it's through Rowena or any of the other canon characters that you become?
One, that I am a snarky motherfucker, and that I am also love leaning into a performance. I always have generally whenever I draw TFs of myself, I'm just like, oh no, how could this happen to me? Or it's like, oh man, this is so inconvenient. I was a drama kid in high school, and
Same.
And I like playing into that. There's this one drawing that I see if I can find it, that I did that kind of embodies things. There we go. Let's see. I'll put it in the session recording chat. Here you go.
Yep.
I understand. I understand rules of drama and such, and I feel like, okay, you know what? I'll play into this. No, if something like that actually happened to me in real life, I'd probably be beyond stoked. But there's something fun to be like, oh goodness, how's this going to affect me? What's the rest of my life going to be like? Oh no! Oh god, these ears are so much fun to play around with. Jeez.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
love
just
that.
Yeah. So generally, you can see that in my TF work, I tend to adopt a fairly snarky, flippant, or oh god, how inconvenient kind of attitude. But for me, it's part of the fun. Is me playing into the fun of it, because I do still have TF art in which that it's very, very embracing of the change, and it's played for fun. And I love doing stuff like that. But I also like playing into just the inconvenience of it, but also kind of like a winking knowingness of it. Like, oh yeah, wink. I know how this goes.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
There's something so deeply appealing to me from the performance perspective, and again, I am also a drama kid, so there might be a through line there. But I think giving that kind of a performance and also letting the audience know you're kind of in on it is such a great way to not only have an enjoyable time making the art for yourself, but also ensures that the audience, maybe they're expecting a certain thing and they are getting it, but there's also you're signaling to them that I know you're getting kind of what you want, but I know better than this, right? Yeah. And there's that knowingness and that, I guess, self-awareness when you're making it, that to me is so wonderful to see when people do in transformation pieces.
Actually, finished a relatively recent piece I could say plays into that a bit too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Oh no, I sure hope something doesn't happen. Oh, but if it does, I'm not going to complain. Yeah, that's exactly that.
I am a little amused that you'd go from I hope nothing ruins my day to now I got to go work this job.
It's great. Isabel's great, honestly.
Oh, she is.
I guess then to tie this topic off with a nice little bow, what advice would you give to people who are interested in exploring other characters in a similar fashion?
Flagrantly disregard copyright law.
Yes.
Are people actually worried about that if they're drawing fan art and shit? Like, I don't understand that.
I know it used to be a big worry back in the early transformation days.
Yes.
I've talked with a few people who are like longtime veterans of the TF community, like in the classic late 90s, early 2000s era, and there really was a period of time. You know how way back when Transfer had a policy, no TF art of copyrighted characters. Yeah. And it was very specifically because they were worried about getting the smackdown on them by companies who saw that stuff. It's like, oh no, we don't want that. Shut your website down.
But you have to go looking for it and make money, and like there's been content like that for like ever about all kinds of things for any reason, and I don't think people understand that.
Well, also, I haven't actually spoken with her, so this might be a misrepresentation, but my understanding was part of the reason why Foxxy had her own website back in the day was so that she could do those kinds of transformations without worrying about it.
Having spoken to her, no, that was definitely a big part of it, because in many ways, I am very much you could say that I'm very much an offshoot of Foxxy's work because of the strong character TF focus. And when talking with her, because she honestly broke a lot of ground in regards to that of drawing TF art of characters when a lot of other people were kind of either afraid, were generally afraid to, just because the internet was new. No one knew exactly what companies were willing to go, how far they were willing to go to enforce their property rights.
People just got to remember Weird Al. All right. Weird Al is your benchmark there.
I mean, I agree, but also to underline Ace's point, I think we were also just like, we didn't really know what the companies were going to do. And I mean, we have seen like, there are certain artists out there. So I think of Anne Rice, for example, who's very anti like fan art. Like she will go into fanfiction.net or AO3 and like try to issue takedown notices off of people writing fan fiction about her characters.
Good for
and
so her. Okay, all right. So look, I get it. I just think it was weird. My assumption from the things I was seeing in media is that you can do things like that as long as it's legally distinct or very clearly like not a certain thing. And I also find it kind of funny how they would be like, I don't want to do it on this platform, so I'll do it on my own where I could do the copyright, but theoretically that wouldn't protect you in the first place because if somebody else was hosting it or you were hosting it.
I think in that case, it's more like you have to go even further to find it. It's not in like a big centralized place where someone could be maybe looking. It's like, oh no, you have to like know this specific person is over here. And at that point, it's like you're telling on yourself.
Okay, fine. So the thing is that, yes, I agree with Ace. Just fucking disregard it. They are not really going to care unless you're trying something. Here, I'll give you another Sonic thing. There is a Sonic fan game project that started to cross a line when they opened the Patreon in order to make their game, and they're like, please don't do that, you're going to ruin it for everybody. You're not supposed to be making money off of fan games, you're not supposed to sell it, you're not supposed to do any of that shit. What are you doing?
I remember. I think I remember hearing about that a while back. Let's see, in terms of other things I would tell people who are willing to do character TF art, generally learn how to work in different styles, because sometimes a lot of like what makes a character is their style. For instance, like Sonic characters, the way that Sonic characters are drawn, like they're very almost intrinsically tied to their style. So I think it's definitely worth being able to explore beyond how you can normally draw in order to try out how a character looks one way or the other. I know that when I was working on stuff for Isabel, I actually have, let's see if I can find it. Here we go. I actually mapped out a chart of how she's changed how I drew her over the years, because I was kind of bouncing back and forth between drawing her like how Nintendo does it, how I want to do it, and then finally eventually finding a way to find a bridge in between both.
Right.
And but I feel like that you can really only have that exploration if you're willing to push beyond your own typical stylings.
Yeah.
And I would say that the last thing in regards to drawing character TF is that, like, you're drawing, like, it's definitely one thing when you're drawing, like, a TF of, like your own OC or, like, of an animal. If you're drawing a TF of a character, there's definitely something about that character that's very much appealing to you, that connects with you. And I would say plumb that, explore that. What is it about that character that fascinated you, that compelled you so much that you want to be them for a bit, you know? And find something to play with in that space, because as it is, ultimately, each one of us is a unique person who are interpreting each of these characters in our own different unique ways because of who we are. And if you can bring that into your work, you will say something unique that other people cannot. There are other people, the way Foxxy draws character TF art is not the way I'd draw character TF art. Simply just because we're two different people who did two separate things, and even though I was inspired by her, I still draw on a bunch of my own experiences when I draw character TF work. It was actually kind of uncanny. There's this, let's see if I can find it. Collab Foxxy. I did a collab with Foxxy a while back, which was a Rouge and Amy TF.
Yeah.
And I found seeing this was really interesting to me because I laid out the poses. She did the final art, and then I went back and I inked and colored it. And because I laid out the poses, that means that it was my posing with Foxxy's art Foxxy's art drawing on top of it. I looked at it, it's like, wow, like there's so much about like me in this, just because of the way I pose the characters. Because Foxxy would not have drawn her characters like this, like posed like this. This is very much my thing. Like, I just one of the things that really stood out to me is like, wow, I really do draw all my characters holding up their arms like that, don't I?
That's so funny.
Yeah. So there, you as a person will have a unique voice if you're willing to speak with it, and I would say speak with it. Just because it's a character that everyone knows doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to approach that character the same exact way. I have my own way of going about doing it, and if you're interested in drawing TFs of these characters, hell, just drawing art in general, you're going to have a unique voice so long as you're willing to speak to what you know and what's interesting and what's important to you.
I think that's fantastic advice, and I will also amend, if I may. One of the things that I think is complementary and kind of reading between the lines of what you're saying is also to expose yourself to a variety of people who do kind of draw that art, because you may get inspired in different ways, and those ideas may kind of percolate in your own mind.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, there's just, I think that's really fantastic advice. I will say I actually was very much inspired by Foxxy's stuff too, although you probably wouldn't see it from my art, but a lot of my older manips back in the day were based in part off of like pictures that she had done. So her impact is incalculable. But I think that's really great advice, and I think that there's so much more that can be mined in this realm, particularly, as you said, in terms of approaching it and relating it back to oneself. So, everyone has their own unique connection, and there's so much that can be explored through that.
And that's what you're saying. Yeah, like explore outside of what you usually might, because you can find some cool things doing so. This one Rowena TF I did was very much inspired by scrapbooking.
Oh yeah.
And like if I just gone my normal way, it wouldn't have looked like this. But I was like, I'm going to try something very different. I'm going to look at scrapbooking. I feel like that multimedia approach will give something unique to this piece. And I'll be honest, this is probably one of my better TF pieces this year.
It's really cool. I
think it's
very
very
much
expressive.
appreciate it. Oh yeah. Yeah, I really dig it. Amazing. Well, I wanted to move on to talk a little bit about the animated work that you've created, because I know you've had the chance to make a number of animated TF GIFs, and obviously animation is very time intensive.
Oh, yeah.
And that is why there's not a lot of it, but I noticed that you've made quite a number of them. And so I was curious to better understand the process you undergo to like plan one out and then actually get it to completion, or at least like, some stage of like being able to show it off.
Yeah. Let me just paste down some of the ones I've done before. Here we go, in MP4 format.
Oh, thank you.
So, animation is difficult. I went to school for animation, and then I didn't end up using it for several years until only relatively recently, like within the past 1 or 2, that I've started really pushing back into it, because there were a lot of things I thought I understood, but until I started really applying it, I realized where I was having misconceptions, and then having to relearn things, and then now I have a much better, I wouldn't say great grasp, but still a better grasp on things. Right. In regards to transformation animation stuff, really one of the big reasons why I wanted to explore and TF in animation is because that most of our TF art is generally like when it comes to sequences, it is an implied temporal progression through space. You do a juxtaposition of images and you imply a progression of time through that. But by I want to explore that just like within a series of moving images, just like what we can see in the cartoons and all that. It's a lot of work, but I mean, it's animation. It's the beauty of animation is the fact that you have a series of images moving one into the other, and it looks like it's alive. It comes to life, and to that end, because of the temporality of it, because of the progression of time, there just comes a whole lot of other things you have to consider when it comes to drawing an animation, even when it's as simple as a portrait.
Right.
Because now any incongruities of how one thing goes to another, like it can generally be hand waved in a general sequence progression, but when it comes to an animation, spacing is how you determine the nature of how something moves through a space. So if you mess up your spacing, you're communicating something differently with how things shift and move. And like that one blaze sequence I showed you there, I had an earlier version of it that had one less drawing, and the one less drawing, the additional drawing I made was placed right before the final frame. And it was simply because there was just too big of a jump between the second to last frame and then the last frame. It was just too big of a jump, too big of a snap. I was like, that does not sit right with me. So I will put another drawing in there. And by adding another drawing in there, even though I didn't actually adjust the timeline, because that other drawing was there, it gave a sensation of slower movement as it reached the end of the animation.
Right.
I think I spoke more about the thought process behind an animation rather than going about how I go doing animation.
No, but that's an important part. I mean, obviously when it comes to, and I didn't know you had that background in it, when it comes to planning something out, you also have to think about what is the actual mechanical way this thing is going to work before you can even start to think about, okay, and this is how I'm going to turn into, Rouge the Bat or something. Like, you need to have that understanding of the medium first, and then you can start to actually plan things out. And I think that your point around, the movement and how, with sequences, you can have kind of implied movement that you never actually have to depict, but with an animation sequence, you really have to brass knuckles down to it and be I have to actually show every single stage. I think that is its own unique challenge.
Because these are a lot of drawings, so many drawings.
Yes.
I can do a TF sequence in 3 to 4 drawings, but if I want to do a TF animation that looks any sort of smooth, I need at least 7, 8 drawings, depending. Goodness. Man. And I even just animate these on 3s, which just means a new drawing every 3 frames, rather than the typical typical TV format of 2 drawings every frame, or if you're crazy like Disney, 1 drawing every frame, which is 24 drawings every second, which is horrifying.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Weird. I didn't even think that it would be that few, because I try to wrap my head around animation. I've experimented, but like, I don't know. It's just hard for me to wrap my head around. And so, like, when you're saying, oh, 6 or 7 drawings, I'm like, what do you mean 6 or 7 drawings? Because I had 27 and I made something, and I was like, oh, okay, that seems reasonable. And I dropped that in there, but I was like, oh, let me try something, because that's as many frames as I'm allowed with the free version not the free version of Clip, the lesser, the downgraded one. I just have like the whole thing, so now I could use as many as I want. But yeah, you can do a lot with very little, and like, see, even I don't understand that, and that's why animation is really hard.
It really is. I imagine that you did this as a straight ahead, right? You started on frame 1 and just kept going from one frame into the next until you reached the end.
Yep, I had no plan, and I know that there are people who plan out keyframes, and then they tween and all that kind of stuff, and I've not really been able to handle that well.
Yeah, it's it takes a lot of practice in order to work like that, and honestly, working straight ahead is very intuitive. And the great thing about doing straight ahead animation is that there's a lot of spontaneity to it. There's because of the fact that you did it straight ahead, like you make the series of drawings in a way that makes sense and that feels good to you, like having the fact that this character keeps their arms clenched to their body, just the way how that different parts are changing at slightly different times, because it's very spontaneous. It means that it's more difficult to hit marks that you need to. Like, if you need to hit a certain sound cue at a certain time on the storyboard or what, it becomes harder to do that. But, like, there's no denying that working straight ahead as compared to just pose to pose, there's a lot of liveliness to working in a straight ahead fashion. So I definitely do like what you did there.
Oh, thank you. It was very old. I did one other one that took a lot of effort. I did it at work. If you'd like to see it, I can show you, but like, I've had like a few experiments.
Mm-hmm. I have had exactly 0, so I'm just like nodding, and I'm like, yes, these are amazing.
But yeah, when it came to the portrait sequences that I've done, these were very largely what you call a pose to pose kind of animation. What I did was that I did the first drawing, I did the last drawing, and I did a drawing straight in the center. These were basically my anchor points for what my intentions were, and then between the first and the middle frame, I split it in half. And from that other half, I split from the first frame to that new half in half again, and then from that half I do it again. This is what creates what you call easing, which is basically because of that half. It makes an accelerating effect where
ease in, ease out.
Exactly, yeah. And that's one of the things why that the TF animations that I've made move the way that they do, because I ease ease in and ease out towards the beginning and end, as opposed to just being awesome, and as opposed to just doing a linear sequence of images from one point to the other.
Yeah,
it's a small thing, but I think it adds to the feel of it. It makes it move a little more naturalistically, as opposed to if that's one of the reasons why why I can't just overlay like some of my TF sequences on top of each other and turn them into an animation, because they were not drawn with that thinking in mind. They were just drawn as a series of sequences of images to be understood in space, not over time.
For that, you'd have to make the effort for other elements.
Mm-hmm.
But I still want to, but Jesus, man, it's it's difficult to understand for me. I'd like to think that I can understand a number of complicated things, but there's something that's just not clicking with me.
I completely understand, because I mean, even for me, like, I went to school for this stuff, and like I was one of, like, I was still one of, like, the I would say I was one of the better kids, the guys in the class who better understood it than most of my other peers. But even then, I when it came to doing it more on my own, there's just so much stuff that I realized that I didn't actually really understand, and I had to, like, grind away, and not just, I couldn't just keep reading about it. I had to read about it and then try it myself and be like, oh, so that's why I wasn't understanding how timing charts worked. Now I understand timing charts, but like before, I was like, I did the timing chart, and I was like, okay, I have a timing chart now, and I didn't understand why I put a timing chart down. I just knew it was something that you did as an animator. It's only nowadays that I was like, okay, I see how this works now.
Yeah, you had to get like a lot more lived experience and actually, do legwork to make it actually make sense. Whereas
I had to make a lot. I had to fail a lot. I had to make a lot of failed animations that didn't work out before it started clicking. It's like, okay, so this is why this wasn't working out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then I'm curious. Obviously we just talked about that one, but obviously everyone knows that animation is very time and labor intensive. Are there like any kind of unique challenges to it that you think people might be surprised to like hear about can be like a challenge?
Sometimes you're going to have to make a drawing that no one will ever see, but they will feel. I have some simple animations if I can find them. But like sometimes you'll work on an animation and you'll notice that it doesn't feel right. And you don't know exactly why. And then, okay, wait, here it is. Here's the thing that's the problem. I need to do an overshoot here, or I need to draw an impact here. And the thing is, more often than not, those frames are barely going to be noticed by people. But the thing is, they'll feel the difference. I've shown these animations to people. It's like, I don't know what you did, Ace, but like this feels better. It's like, I know, right? Like, I just had to spend another 30 minutes adding a whole new drawing to this thing. And it feels better. And, of course, like, I can articulate it because I'm an animator. And if I showed another animator, they'd be like, oh, hey, take a look. Yeah, that's a nice overshoot you added there. It's like, oh, thank God someone else recognized what I added in there. But for most other people, they're just going to feel the difference. And that's one of the things that's both, like, really fascinating and also really frustrating about animation.
So to give you a little bit of comfort in that, you can always think of Red Letter Media when they said, you may not have noticed it, but your brain did.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way of phrasing it. Oh, man. Are there, I'm curious, are there any, like, particularly let me start that sentence again. Are there any particular kinds of TF that you feel lend themselves well to animation, or at least your style of animation?
Honestly, I'm really glad that I'm mostly focused on character TFs, because most of these characters have already been simplified for animation's sake.
That's a good point.
They have strong shape language, and I can just build off of that in order to create what I need to get creating. So yeah, generally, the character TF really lends to that. They've some character designer out there in the world has already spent the hours and hours making sure that these characters are both readable, clear, and also easy to animate. So that way an in-betweener in the Philippines isn't sweating bullets thinking, "Oh goodness, how am I going to draw this frame now?" But as it is, ultimately, you can also break down most things in life into simple, basic shapes. Really, I would say that if you want to know what I would say is the really hard stuff to animate, if anyone's into inanimate TF and they want to do animation work on that, best of luck, because man, depicting things like geometrically and in perspective and all that is already hard enough in static artwork. How much more in animation. I look at the people who do animation work for Gundam. I'm like, you're all insane. Every single one of you. You don't just. This is like the 70s and the 80s and shit. They don't have 3D models to swing around to just trace on top of. No, they're drawing these perspective correct giant mechas swinging around in space where there's no clear perspective point, there's no clear horizon line, and they make them look as they don't make them look organic or fleshy. They look like mechanical objects. Now, if you want to draw a TF
like
of
them
anything,
too.
Huh? Yes,
and they move like them too. There's just to build on what you're saying. Gundam typically they gotta make them look and feel like machines, even if they're doing backflips and shit like that. There's certain things that they wouldn't be doing to stay on model. But then you have something like G Gundam, and for anybody that knows anything about G Gundam, you'll at least understand that those suits are supposed to move exactly like people because they're supposed to follow the movements of people. They get inside, and everything that the person does, the machine will do too. So to lean even more into that, there's a game called Gundam Versus, and they take a bunch of different Gundams from a bunch of different series, and they will stand there in their pose, ready like a machine, completely static, completely still, unless they're moving. But when it's a G Gundam, you see their body flowing, their stance is like moving because people move, and they know that the person inside is dictating every single movement of the machine, and all that has to be taken into account.
I absolutely loved G Gundam growing up, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. That latex ring thing in G Gundam broke the minds of so many people.
that was so like clearly fucking horny, especially when they put rain in it.
Oh my god! They put a horse in it too at one point.
They did. They put Master Asia's horse in it, and I think they just wanted to show something completely fucking wild. And I'm glad they did it. Fuck it.
Me too.
God, that was weird. I didn't show you the one with the horse, did I, Zil?
No, I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Oh, man, do I have something to show you later on? Because I'm just like, I really like this for transformation. And because they put this chick in it, and I'm like, okay, cool. But they, of course, like put the main character through it, who is a guy. But yeah, then they also put a horse through it, because there's a giant horse for one of the Gundams, and it's really stupid, and it's great.
So funny.
I need to watch that show again.
Yeah.
Oh man, I look forward to being educated on this and seeing what you have in store for me. So, I guess then to kind of close this topic off, I was curious to know what your kind of future plans are, or if you have any future plans for doing animated transformations.
Yeah, I definitely have future plans. I have like 2 more that I have to do for some people that are a bit overdue. I need to work on those for them. But I definitely want to do things that are more involved, because it's one thing to do like a portrait sequence, because the thing is, the portrait is like the most readable human part of the face. You can relate to it a lot, but it's also, I guess, I would say as an artist, as an animator, it's a little unchallenging. I'm just kind of shifting elements around from one part into another, and I would like to do a bit more than just that. So like here, I can show you some stuff that are all basically works in progresses, but they're all animations that I've wanted to do at one point or another that are just more than just portrait sequences. Well, this one's portrait sequence, but you'll see what I mean with this one. And where's another one?
Oh yes, I do. Oh wow.
That was
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Here it is, and here's this one.
Oh, I love the size change on that one.
Yeah.
Isn't that the character from Dust?
Yes, it is.
I forgot her name.
Fidget,
yeah. But yeah, those are great. And you see that second one that you have there, that's the kind of thing I would like to make.
Yeah.
But I just can't figure it out.
definitely one of the things that just make it so difficult. It's just like knowing when to do holds, like when not to move anything except like the one element that you're focusing on, like how that the head is held up while the snout is like slowly pushing outward. It's difficult. That's one of the things that I had a lot of trouble with, because you have this idea, it's like it's animation, they should be moving like every frame, but that's expensive and that's time consuming. Even this animation, one of the reasons why that I haven't finished this one is because I was thinking about, it's like, oh man, I'm going to have to change the hair from one style into another over the course of the entire animation, and that's going to be awful.
Yeah.
But another friend of mine another artist who I just met very recently, took a look at it. It's like, what you could do is just like, you could just change the hair from one style partway into the other and then into another quickly, and then instead of doing it over the course of the entire animation. That's like, oh my god, I never would have thought of that. Thank you. I now have a path forward in order to actually finish this stupid animation. But yeah, more involved things like this, including the entire body, and it's definitely stuff I want to do more of. And also just like being able to play out, like, say, an animation over the course of like a minute or 2 minutes, and not just focus on the entire body, but play around with staging and framing, shift from different angles and show off different parts that are changing, and just let the audience's mind piece together the pieces in order to cohere in a total image of a person undergoing a change.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You exactly got the kind of thing that I want to do. So I see you being able to do it, and it got total faith in you for that.
Oh yeah,
thank you.
I'm excited for whatever you end up sharing, because it's going to be great. So
thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Hopefully I can do that soon.
Yeah.
But way life is, got to do other commissions in order to.
It's gonna happen the way it needs to happen.
Yep.
I hope that you can just finish it, or at least say that you're satisfied with it. That's what I want for you, because everything's gonna happen the way it has to.
Well, speaking of things that keep happening, I wanted to touch on this last topic, which was actually voted on by our patrons, and it's about kind of the future of the TF community.
Boy.
We've kind of, very, very light, flippant topic. We've kind of seen, I think all of us here have seen the transformation community go through a lot of changes over the years. And one of the things that I think has really tied it together, particularly in the past, 20 years, has been the internet. And the internet, which has been the lifeblood of the transformation community since like that inception, is falling apart, to be blunt. We've got sites crumbling, people are being scattered back around various smaller pockets, sometimes even behind closed doors on things like, Discord communities. Mm-hmm. And so I guess what I wanted to pick your brain on, Ace, is what do you think the future holds for the TF community?
I think things are going to be rough for a good bit, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if things are worse before they get better. Mm-hmm. The initial conception of the internet was very much the idea of people kind of having their own spaces and being able to just access these spaces through an interconnected web. Right. But as time has gone on, we've had more and more of these sites like Twitter and all that, which have kind of subsumed these little personal spaces into one giant whole, which in some regards was for the better, but also in many other regards it deprived us of a lot of things. There's some websites I really enjoyed going to as a kid that are just not around anymore, because why go through all the trouble of making your Legend of Zelda fan shrine when someone could just make a Facebook page for it or a Twitter page about it that just posts blog posts about it every once in a while, or Tumblr. We lost a lot during that time. I know that we lost a lot of TF communities way back when, and during the early mid 2000s. as we were transitioning into that era. I definitely think that we definitely need our personal spaces that we can be like, this is for the TF community. I know that work is being done on like transfer, I believe, to try to make it a bring it back up to the prominence it once had, like during the early 2000s, and I think that if people can just make more of like some of those older fashioned sites that intercommunicate and interlink with one another, I think we could do a lot if with just collating and collecting like our output as a community, as an artistic community. But it definitely is going to have to be alongside with playing with like the space that we have with today, like Tumblr, Twitter, and all that. Twitter's not a good place for a gallery.
No, it's not.
It really is not.
Never has been.
But it is also the place that tends to have the most reach. So but I think that if people can work towards directing people towards these places where you can build up an actual community, and not just like a sealed off one like in Discord, because not everyone has Discord, but most everyone has access to the internet now. Honestly, I would love to see like forums make a comeback. I would love to see forums come back. Just web pages where people can see artwork and comment on it. Especially if we can have just one dedicated to like the TF community too, because there's a lot of us. We're a pretty sizable chunk of the furry community.
You think so? I don't feel like that. I feel like furry is like furry as people know it. Like there's just like way bigger, and people who are into the idea of transformation as a focus within that are like much smaller.
Oh yeah, we're small. We're definitely small. But I mean, honestly, I'm always surprised at how big we are, all things considered.
Yeah, I feel like in terms of like the overall number of furries, we're small, but in terms of raw numbers, there's actually a sizable number of TF people. And I guess that's like a bit contradictory, but I definitely agree. I to speak to the transfer point, I think they've said they're going to make a new website for like 6 or 7 years now at this point. And I really want them to, because transfer was my initial kind of introduction to the transformation community. And it holds a special place in my heart. But, I agree. I think there like more sites that are more like TF centric, be it forums or what have you, I think are probably going to be necessary, because, I have a very strong love-hate relationship with Discord itself, and the thing that really bothers me the most about Discord is the gated community aspect, because when forums died, a lot of things went to Discord, and now you can't just readily access that by looking online. So, we've lost the archivability of a huge chunk of knowledge for so many different things. And, I think about how the Wayback Archive has saved a lot of our asses in terms of old content, but it can't do that for a Discord. And I worry about people building communities on those kinds of platforms when you can't archive them properly. And, the social media site that I like the most at the moment is Blue Sky, but it's not exactly designed to be open for just anyone either right now. And I know that they have plans to open it up, and I really hope those happen sooner rather than later. But there is a part of me, like, the internet historian / archivist in my mind that's like, this is bad. Like, no one can archive these things. Like, they could be gone tomorrow if, someone didn't pay the bills, and we would be losing all of this output and such. And so I would agree with your assessment. I think it is going to get worse before it gets better. I would like to think that there is going to be a better stage. I long for a site that can replace like TF Spot or even like CYOC, because both of those are kind of on their last legs in terms of actually being maintained as websites. There was like an outage for CYOC recently that was like over a week long, and it's not like I go there every day. I very rarely check it, but there's some real gems on there that I was like, oh my God, these could be gone forever.
Yeah.
And so, I just feel like there is such a strong need for those kinds of central locations, and the question is really who is actually going to go and build them. Because at the end of the day, a lot of, at least from what I've seen, a lot of stuff comes down to one person just building something. And, you know, obviously then that gets support from the community and you have like people who want to help with it. But
I think it's
really
very
have to start.
It's very difficult to archive things. You say even the fact that you would build your own website, where's that going to go? Where's that going to sit? On whose server? For what reason? What happens to there? And the stability of any of that is really, you make the best choices you can with the resources that you have. It's really, really difficult because of what the internet is now. Because, it's consolidated into a few, like, if it's like a few big chunks, and, you know, people don't really go exploring to a lot of web pages and shit like that, as much as I like to think people should, because it's huge. But, you know, pretty much none of this rests on an altruistic level. There is, you'll be hard pressed to find any way to meaningfully keep something with the interest of, oh yes, we think it's the right thing to do. Because there are organizations, but like, then what happens to them? And I guess you could say, like, well, nothing is certain, so why try anything? But I guess it just goes to, you make the best choices you can, how about this? If you really do want to do something archivist or something that's more easily preservable, try to make sure that you're working with people whose interests align with yours as closely as possible. That way, it doesn't always rest on one person. Because, hey, if there is one person making a site and that site happens to get very popular, well, it's still going to rest on one person, isn't it? What happens to them? They get hit by a bus, that's it, you're fucked. Or they turn into some some piece of shit, then you're fucked. It's difficult. I think something kind of democratic would be good. You know, something that people can sort of all contribute to, or just like, you know, like you can pass on like a responsibility or a function. It should be a group effort. If people want to refer to this as a transformation community, you're going to have to do some community work, community stuff, communicate, commune, all those words that that is what community is about. That is not easy. But but if you want to get a scope of what's needed, that's the kind of stuff you got to think about, because you can't just lean on one person to archive stuff all the time. But the ease of being able to just jump on somebody else's platform to do something could be kind of precarious. You gotta think of something else, and that's tough right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And, you know, I guess to your point as well around the archiving, I mean, even having our own sites isn't necessarily the panacea that we may want it to be, because those sites, like you said, can go down. I remember to refer back to something or someone we were talking about earlier, you know, I know when Foxxy's site went down while she was kind of in her hiatus from transformation, like a lot of stuff was just lost because not necessarily, not all of it was actually archived on like archive.org. And I forget, there was like some server that got like removed or went away or something like that. But, you know, that was someone who had her own website, and, you know, some of it still is kind of gone forever. So, you know, it really does come down to, like you were saying, like community communication and like community building, which is not easy to do. And I'd like to think that, especially I feel like as we've kind of emerged from, you know, COVID and all this stuff, I think a lot of people, because they had a lot of time at home, found themselves like drawn to interests that they didn't have before. I know that, you know, attendance numbers at cons are kind of popping off for that kind of reason. And I'd like to think that more people have gone into transformation in that time. And I would hope that as more people have come in, we've gotten more people who are interested in those kinds of community building projects. And, you know, I like to think we're doing a little bit of that in our own way here with the podcast, but broadly speaking, it really is going to be a large effort to either put together like a democratic website, or like, you know, have these other individual forums or transfer upgrades or any of those sorts of things to actually then make it something that's long lasting. And I think, you know, part of the frustration with all of this is also that we had thought these big centralized websites weren't going to change. And then we had like the Tumblr porn ban. We had, Twitter being bought by Elon Musk. We had all of these things that completely undercut these platforms that we thought were going to be eternal institutions. Yeah. And so now it's like, when you lose your institutions, what do you do? And the answer is to build new institutions, but build is the key word.
I'd like to throw something into that, so I don't know if you guys agree. Mm-hmm. So there's another thing to realize. You know how people ask about animation and content, and I wish there was like mainstream this, or if there was a game that would that, mm-hmm. media, things, even product, right? Mm-hmm. All these people who are being influenced are growing up. People like these are getting into industry positions. Eventually, they're going to get into not just industry positions like, cogs or whatever, but they're going to become influential. That's going to start happening. The moment that happens, that's going to create other opportunities with similar interests, because people like to further their own interests. And if they line up, there you go.
Yeah.
The thing about the internet now is, as dystopic as it can be, it has opened up to the idea that you can actually grassroots build things by funding them. And that wasn't very possible early on, but now people have very clear avenues as to, I can go here if I want to give my support to something. So as those things are happening, and independent projects are something that people are actually, I think, beginning to really take a shine to, there is a lot of opportunity. And there's a lot of opportunity. It's actually kind of an optimistic view that I have, that if you think that the community could build into something better or bigger, or finally shoot off into something that works mostly for us, but also is not like strictly kept to like an app or terms of service for some other website, then, we have those opportunities. You make the best choices that you can, and you support the best people based on the information that you get. But as it's like a forest fire, what's going on? And you all understand what I mean by that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for those that don't understand what I mean, a forest fire is typically actually pretty good for a forest. It grows back bigger and more lush. That's generally how it goes for natural forest fires. And I like to think of it as an opportunity for things to burn down and to take in everything that just got turned into the next like lush bed of soil and do something with. We can do that. It's just not going to be easy, and you're going to have to get a little lucky.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, we are definitely in the acute fire phase right now, as it were, of that analogy. But I can hope that there will be things that will grow out of that fertile soil. We have to be the seeds in those cases and help support each other grow. So, yeah. Well, to be less depressed, we do have a lot of conventions that are back in full swing right now as well. And as I said earlier, like they're exploding in attendance numbers. And so, outside of potentially having a transformation con, I was curious, Ace, if you have any suggestions for TF fans who are looking to maximize their time with them in the future, be it through like meeting others, building connections, that sort of thing.
Definitely introduce talk of conventions into the topics amongst your friends and peers. See if anyone's going to any place, and see if, hey, any chance we could meet up and hang out. Because there's plenty of us. There's plenty of us around, and a lot of us are going to cons. And cons are just they're a lot of fun. That's one thing, but it's also just being able to meet with people in person regarding a shared interest. There's something about it, just like that, really strengthens the connection to both the person that you're meeting, and also the fact that this isn't just a thing that you're just enjoying with a bunch of strangers around the world. They're actually people. They have names, they have faces, and they have their own things that they're doing and that they like to do. And it's And I think, having this shared interest, I think it's a great jumping off point for additional relationships down the line too. God knows that I have a lot of friends who I met through TF stuff, but like beyond me sharing a TF draw with them or vice versa every once in a while, we actually talk about a lot more things than just that nowadays.
Yes. I think that's such an important comment. Libra and I are very good friends, obviously, and we don't even necessarily talk about TF all the time, or even half the time. Like, so much of a friendship is built off of connecting with the whole person, not just a specific part of the person. And obviously, we want to be able to, kick back and talk about TF with the buds, but also, like, that can't be the only connection that you have to people. You really need to kind of build yourself out as a person so that you can connect with other people on different facets. So I think that's such an important point that you make.
Yep, I'm glad somebody else said it. I think more people need to realize it, because if you go just by your tastes, you're going to find yourself kind of assed out, especially if you're not really into most of what other people are into. Like, I don't know, man. Do you want to connect with people or do you not? Do you want to at least have the jumping off point to somebody who gets you on something that is deeply personal to you, and then go from there? Or is that all you're really looking for? You got to be honest with yourself and know how you come off to people. So that way you don't find yourself alone. Because I know that a lot of people feel alone in this. I know I did. Something like transfer, to go back to that real quick, was that it made me specifically realize that this is a thing and it's actually shared by other people. Not in my wildest fucking dreams at the time did I think that this specific thing was something that a ton of other people share. So here I am. And it's helpful to know that there's also the rest of you that matters. Because, look, man, I feel like, for instance, our efforts with this podcast is showing proof that you can talk about this subject to eternity.
Yes.
But if we only ever stuck to that topic and only that, you'd have 30 to 45 minute episodes tops. And if you like short episodes, good. But then that's also like really fucking flat. Might as well review a video game.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And, I guess on the topic of like meeting people as they are, I just think it's so important to, again, put that effort also to like make sure that you can develop your own interests as well. If this is like something that's like consuming 90% of your time, it's also good to like, invest in other topics, because again, when you're connecting with someone, say at a convention, yes, you want to talk about that specific thing, but like, we're all people. We're all going to talk about different things as well too. And you want to be able to continue to feel like present and like being talked to. Because I know one of the other things, and this is kind of the part of conventions that maybe isn't always talked about, like if you're going on your own and you're like looking to meet people and you feel like you're not making those kinds of like connections, you can feel very weirdly alone when you're in that space. And obviously that's not fun for anyone. So if anything, if you are like, looking to go to a convention in the future, I think that having other things you can talk about is a really important way to make connections. Because, if we're all in for example, a TF meet and greet, we all know we're interested in transformation. But if you can talk to someone else at that table about, say, how much you really like Gundam and they really like it too, I mean, that's going to enhance your connection by that much more. So.
Yeah.
Because I'll ask you both, don't you think that you feel more, don't you think you feel better when you find out you're talking to somebody outside of the transformation interests, and then you think, oh shit, these people really are like me. They don't just like the same thing I do, they actually share qualities of me. Mm-hmm. Isn't that nicer than just, oh yeah, this is the pool of content we really like. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, for sure. Like that one friend that I occasionally do TFRPs with is also like one of my biggest creative like peers now. Like a lot of some stories and ideas that I come up with are often bounced off with him, and we spin it out into something much bigger and greater than I could do alone. And like that's and yeah, sure, we had that sharing common ground of TF stuff, but it was getting to know each other more that we found out that there's some values and ideas that we share in terms of story writing, and also how that because of our differences of what we look for in writing stories, that we could help contribute to each other's works that we would not be able to achieve just on our own. So like the TF stuff was a good starting ground.
Almost like what an artistic community is about.
Yeah, I would second that. And honestly, I think it can sometimes feel really rare to make that kind of a connection with people. So I'm really glad that you've found that connection. I know that I've made those kinds of connections with other people too, and it really is that rewarding. But again, it's meeting people as they are. That's such an important part of it. So highly recommend.
This is all real. There is no in real life and online. Online is online, but everybody's real. This is all life. You're all getting them. This is what it is. Just remember, it's all real. All the people are real. You're always doing something with them. Whether they choose to lie to you is different, but it's all real.
Yes. Agreed. Well, then, I guess to kind of close off on our ruminations on the future of the TF community, Ace, do you think there are any like specific tropes or trends that will become more prominent in the future, be it in like art, movies, writing, etc., when it comes to transformation?
Just like what K-Libra said, a lot of the folks who grew up in this community, as time goes on, some of us are going to go into the industry and all that. We might start seeing more and more of that kind of stuff in the future. God knows that there was a bunch of it in like 80s and 90s cartoons.
Oh yeah.
There's a bit of a dearth afterwards, but who knows? Coming soon, we might see even more of it. Some guy just gets into their head that, you know what, I just really, really want an American Werewolf in London style TF in my movie, and I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. Sorry, go ahead.
But I think too, just that transformation is a concept and idea that's been around since biblical times, classical Greco-Roman times. It's like it's not just a bunch of furries who just happen to like people or things turning into other things. There's like a lot of classical foundation for this kind of stuff, and I think it's interesting that as time has gone on, there has been like a shift in the attitude towards transformation in mainstream media and all that. Because I still remember how, like, in those old style movies, being turned into something unnatural, untoward, that's something to be terrified of, to be feared, that you are not yourself anymore. But now we're starting to see more and more stories coming out in which that a transformation is not a loss of oneself, but a way to enable someone to better discover who they are, that they may not have been able to when they were trapped in the I guess confines of normal, quote unquote, normal society. Yeah. I've come across a good number of, especially a lot of like LGBTQ plus comics and stories online in which that a person transforms and changes into something, and it speaks to their experiences as someone who's transgender, someone who's gay or lesbian, so on and so forth. And it's something that they would never have reckoned with if they didn't end up turning into something else that would have forced them to reckon with it. Yeah. And I think we're going to see. We'll see more of that kind of stuff, especially now that these kinds of stories are like a lot. You have a lot of people pushing back on it, but it's also shown that a lot of people want these stories, and also a lot of other people are just rather ambivalent to it. It's like, oh, that's cool, and just like, okay, cool. We're still gonna make money. Hollywood's still gonna make money if they make a movie about a transgender werewolf.
Yeah, exactly.
So
man.
I think that's fascinating, and I think it would be cool to see more stuff in that regard, in which that transformation is not just shown as a subversion of a corruption of oneself, but actually an enabler of future growth that they may not have otherwise had.
Yeah. think that's a great way to put it. And, you know, one thing that I will also say, kind of to add on to that, I've noticed in particular that a lot of the most recent examples of transformation have been tied towards like exploring like familial or like generational trauma. It's come up like a number of times. I've noticed, like, you know, it was involved with Turning Red. It was involved with Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I will tell you, growing up as an Asian American, these are painfully relatable topics that watching them come up on screen is like, oh wow. I don't know if I ever really want to see that in such plain, clear detail, actually.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, but oof.
But yeah, like, I feel like that's a great point. Like, it is allowing some of these topics to resonate particularly well with folks. And, you know, even like Ruby Gilman, I think, was another recent one where that was kind of explored. Like, there's...
What about Brave? There was Brave, too.
Brave was too. Yeah, no, Brave's a good example, too. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I think one trend that I think we'll probably see more of in media is, like, a further exploration of those kinds of themes. Because I feel like, and this is maybe projection a little bit, but I think a lot of, like, millennials, when they grew up, they had a lot of issues with their upbringing and like with their relationships with their parents and all of those things. And now they are in industry positions and such. And so they want to tell stories that talk about that trauma or find ways to resolve it in ways that they couldn't have for themselves. And transformation is such a great concept to do that kind of exploration. So I feel like there's going to be more of it in the future, and frankly, I'm here for it.
It'll
also
happen.
Like,
I think it'll happen.
Yeah. Also, I don't think
a little inevitable.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, I've seen it like 5 times, and every single time I've cried. So.
Oh man, you should have seen me in the movie theater when I watched that movie. I was sobbing.
I can only imagine.
It was so fucking sweet.
It was so good. Listen, like, it's one thing to make me cry because you showed me something incredibly sad and it broke my heart. It's a wholly something else when you make me cry because you just showed to me the absolute power and strength of human connection and how incredible that can be, how it can reach across family, friends, so generations and so forth, and just leave me a sobbing puddle on the ground.
And that's also that's something that I wanted to say. Again, this reinforces what I keep realizing. There are people who use transformation as a way to get away from being human. They dislike their humanity. You know, that's not really what this is best suited for. I don't see it as any other way than to highlight, you know, exactly what we are, what we want to be, what we want to avoid. If you wanted to use that to say, oh yes, well, you know, clearly this is a way for me to step away from this disgusting existence and, you know, this society. Well, what else do you have to draw? Like, what else are you going to have frame of reference for? You don't know what it's like to be an animal. And frankly, that's really what you're going to be going for, right? You're going to be going by the human ideal because that's all you have of what it is to have a better life or be good or to be at peace, to be happy. So no matter what, that's what transformation can give you. No matter what, you know, if you want to be anything from you know, a fucking pony, you know, an MLP type pony, or if you want to be a house cat, that is what you're going to be doing. You're highlighting your humanity. Even the idea that you want to get rid of it, that's based on your idea of humanity.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that central irony is what draws so many people to transformation too. Like, at the end of the day, we are more human because of that, because of our relation to these things. And hey, look, I mean, I'd be happy to, you know, wake up tomorrow as a Lombax, like, don't get me wrong, but all of this really does tie into like our conceptions of these things. So I think you put that really well, Libra.
Yeah, I want us, you know what? Ultimately, I want everybody to be okay. Because if we're all okay, then there's going to be a lot fewer problems.
Mm-hmm.
I find it distressing when people look at themselves in this community and there are pockets of people who think, if only I wasn't me. But that's what you're going to be. You are you. And outside of that, what is there?
Yeah.
You can change aspects about yourself too. That's why I also like to say that transformation is real, because it is. It's just not the kind that you would like, maybe, but it is real. You can become better. You can do it. You can get help to do it too. It's there for us.
Yeah.
And this is in between, lots of having fun, because I love having fun with this. Boy, I'd like it. I would really, really like it. In the meantime, I like to think, if I keep curling, I'm going to look completely different.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, I have some audience questions that I want to make sure we have time for, because I know we've been talking quite a bit on some very wonderful things. The first question we have comes from Fire, and this one's a bit of a doozy. So Fire says, choose a song and then redo parts of the lyrics to make them TFE.
Okay.
Do you want to go first, Ace?
I could not make this completely work, but I tried coming up with something. We'll see how this works.
Okay.
Let's get down to business to become a pawn. Don't want to be a stallion, make me a mare. Oh no, I'm only a piece of human flesh, and I want to be remade. That's all I got.
All right.
That's all I got. I could not come up with
incredible.
anything more.
That was incredible.
Oh god.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no,
I can't top that.
There's nothing to top. I'm the most disappointing one here.
I was a vocalist in high school, and I still try to keep on top of it as much as I can even today.
Yeah. No, that's great. I am not a vocalist. Sorry,
But
Libra,
you
did you
sing?
Oh God, I sing at karaoke. That's different.
That'd be nice.
man,
You actually sing though. Anyway.
So you said you had a disappointing answer, Libra.
I mean, no, I have no idea what to pick. I would have to ruminate over for days to do it. And even then, do you really want to fucking wait that long to see what I would do? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because the answer is there's a bunch of music that I've either been introduced to or have just, again, fallen ass backwards into. I'm like, this has a very, I'm going to change into something or transformation themes. There's fucking song called BIOS. I think it's from Guilty Crown. That literally has the words "change your body" in the song, become stronger, shit like that. I'm like, well, there's that. There's the song Mango Tango for Double Dragon Neon that speaks of like a woman at a club who like a tiger, like a cat, like all this prowling, hunting, and then what was it like? Follow me, your love is calling me. Let me see. And then it's just like, it's like something like a sorcerer controlling me. Shit like that. Like, I don't have to, I don't really want to think about it. Or rather, not that I don't want to, but I can't even begin to think about it because I've already got it, like, thrown right in my fucking face. There's Howl by Florence and the Machine, which is literally about turning into a werewolf and shit. Like, why? I have it.
You have it. Well, that's fair. So the one I was going to mention, and I don't technically actually need to make lyric changes to this one, but there's a song called You First by Paramore that was off of their most recent album that came out earlier this year. And it's a song about choosing like good over evil within yourself, but it's almost all exclusively done through like metaphors around like wild animals. And like a lot of the lyrics come across as being like TF adjacent. Like she sings about like, just like a stray animal, I keep feeding scraps. I give it my energy and it keeps coming back. She talks about, the two wolves inside of you, like which wolf wins. It depends. Just got to wait and see which one's appetite is the biggest. It gets kind of werewolfy. It talks about living in a horror film where you're both the killer and the final girl. And so I don't technically need to change the lyrics to this one. I think in the chorus, there might be like some small things I would change. It talks about like karma coming for people. You could change that to like the moon, like just a few things to make it very werewolfy, like even more than it already is. And the reason I also picked this one is because it was remixed recently, and the person who remixed it is named Remy Wolf. So the fact that there's also like a wolf connection there, I think is just incredible. So anyways, would recommend people check it out. I'm not going to sing because I'm terrible at singing, but that would be my song choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So yeah, it's a great song too. Just absolute banger. So the next question I have here is from Galen, and Galen says, if you were given an unlimited budget to make a movie, but it had to have TF as relatively central to the plot, what kind of movie would it be, and what would it be about?
I would do my own take on Everything Everywhere All at Once, honestly.
Hell yeah.
Because, God, that movie spoke to me so much. Just that concept of like, I mean, in a way, you could even see how, like, my work would kind of, like, play into that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
my character TF work. And I also have a bunch of my own characters and all that. I've actually even thought of, like, a possible story in which that the main character kind of explores aspects of themselves as they're being violently thrown from one. It's hard to say personality than anything, or just like different versions of themselves just being thrown around violently from one to another, and like having to both figure out their own shit in the process, but also trying to figure out like, how do people see me, How do people see me, and how does that play into the kind of person that I am, who I want to be, and who they expect me to be? And I think that would be cool, especially if all those forms just happen to be, just a little fuzzier than your average person.
Yeah. I dig that. I think that would be great. How about you, Libra?
I have to think about it a little bit more.
Okay, then I'll go. So I had 3 different options. The first would be completely self-indulgent, and it would just like involve someone turning into a Lombax and like having to navigate like the Ratchet and Clank universe because I'm trash. The second one, which actually had more artistic integrity. So I really like the movie Alien, and I think it would be much, much cooler if instead of the people dying, they were getting transformed into the alien creatures themselves too. I feel like you could do a lot of really like interesting, like, and I mean TF as in like still like being kind of in there. I think there could be some really interesting stuff at play there as well, especially if maybe not all of them became like, violent or what have you. I think you could have a really interesting climactic fight between xenomorphs. Obviously we'd need to have Sigourney Weaver back again. So
of course.
We'll figure that out. And then because I love space so much, the third idea that I kind of had in mind was kind of a retelling of, I guess, like the Odyssey, but in space and also with werewolves. And I haven't fleshed this idea out more than that, but that would basically be the pitch. I think it would be really fun.
Gotcha.
And I mean, there's already TF embedded in that kind of a story. But I think if you have werewolves, you make everything better. And what's better than werewolves in space? So especially like, what moons are you going to be interacting with? Like, I think there's a lot that could be mined there. So yeah, those would be my overall picks.
Okay, so I was able to think of something.
Okay.
And I enjoy the themes of exploring humanity. I would want to make a movie where it's like monster lovers and stuff like that. Acceptance of people for who and what they are. And also just kind of, I guess, being open to expanding yourself and opening yourself up to just not shutting out certain things and certain people. And also other themes, like I could do a movie like that, monster lover romance kind of thing. Also, I think exploring the connectivity that people actually have to the rest of life in general, which is grandiose and all and stuff. But there is a lot to say when people... There's plenty of people in the community you can find that say, oh, animals are this compared to humans. But humans are not removed from the animal kingdom. And one of the things I think is a huge mistake, from like societal structures, is saying that we are apart from that, we are above that, we are better than that. But it is integral to what we are. We are those things. We scientifically even have a classification in the animal kingdom, and yet we try to ignore it. But I think it would be great to have a movie in where you could have transformation as the focus to let you know that for all the things that are different, you're ultimately doing the same thing. Are you grinding at your job every day to eke out an existence, a survival, to be happy? Yeah. You're going to be choosing to do that in another form. What is really the worthy kind of survival or life? That kind of exploration. And sure, I'd want to make it so that those movies have like very vivid transformations of like a very like a very physically charged sort of thing, to really make the transition itself, something that's fun and appealing for me, but also to let people know this is really serious shit. And you're going to take it as such because the character is taking it as such. It cannot be ignored. It should not be ignored. It's not supposed to be convenience. You're supposed to be learning something, and learning a lot of things doesn't come easy and sometimes involves a good deal of pain and discomfort.
I would pay good money to watch that.
I'd watch that too.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. And then, so we have a last question. I think this one is a great question and also a doozy because I've been thinking about it for like 5 hours, and I'm still going to have to pick an answer on the spot. So this comes from Professor Scritch, and basically it's a choice question. So you're presented with the opportunity to transform into either your favorite animal or your favorite anthropomorphic character. So you get to pick the character animal. You have 3 options to choose from. A, the transformation process takes a month, and you get to be that animal or character for 1 day at the end. B, the transformation process takes 1 day, and you get to be that animal or character for a week at the end of the process. Or C, it is a poof TF, and you get to be that animal or character for 1 year at the end of the process. Which of those 3 do you choose, and why?
Oh, I got an answer for that one.
Go ahead.
B. B would provide me it would give me most of what I want, which is being able to observe the change. And that's part of the appeal for me anyway. And plus a week I think is long enough, especially what if I think this is actually going to be a mistake? What if something comes up? A week you can kind of like survive, like, okay, 7 days. Going through a transformation in like the other scenarios, like the first one doesn't feel worth it to me unless you like the process to be drawn out that much, which, man, when I exercise, I want it to go faster. Okay. But the last one is kind of like for the entire year. Oh my God, so much can happen in a year, and I don't know. So I'm taking it as an opportunity, and I'm taking it as an opportunity to have at least a little bit of fun. And I think 7 days is actually a really long time.
Well, that's entirely fair. How about you, Ace?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm in a very similar boat. I would go with B. Yeah, take transformation over a single day, stick around as that for a week. Because a day, when it plays out over a month, the changes are going to be so slight and so minute that it's not going to come up on you, like, from a day-to-day thing. It's going to be like you wake up next week, it's like, oh, my ears are pointed. Huh. I didn't even notice that over the course of over the past several days, but now I do, now that it's a new week. But it's just so minute that it's not really watching a transformation play out as it is kind of seeing a new change every few days when you finally notice it,
Yeah. No, I think that's valid. Sorry, go ahead.
And also just being able to stick around for a day, just there's not much too much to explore with just a day, but at least with a week, you have a good chunk of time to deeply consider and think about it, to enjoy it or otherwise dread it, and know that with a week, it's not so long that if things aren't working out, that would be like, okay, yeah, we can just wait it out, as Libra said. But also, like, if it's something that you end up really enjoying, it's not so long that when you lose it, it's gonna be gutting, you know?
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, because like if you spend a really long time in a way that you really, really like, and then suddenly that's just taken from you, you might not be the same again, and you just might carry that weight with you for the rest of your life. At least with a week, it will just be that one time in your life where it's like, man, that was something.
Yeah,
I like that perspective.
Yeah.
That's
and also
so
poof, and also I am on a mini crusade against poof TF. So it's like I don't have any real problem with poof TF, but like as someone, especially as an artist, you know, who very much explores the mechanical intricacies of how one form gets into another, poof TF is not going to do much for me, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to know what it feels like to go from one shape into another, and yeah, like especially if I'm going to be able to enjoy being something for a year, sure, but at the same time, like, you know, it's also all about the journey, man. You gotta be able to know what it's like to get there in the first place, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's what we as transformation fans are so big on. So
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, if I can say that I know for a lot of people who are like TF writers, it's much more about the aftermath and the implications and the what does this TF entail, and what does it mean for me in the long term. For someone who's much more about like the consequences of such, C is definitely an appealing option, and I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. For me, as someone who is very much into the process, I really do want to see how it plays out. And 24 hours is a good time frame for that.
Yeah.
Time
No, absolutely.
for a lot of 5-hour energy and coffee. I'm going to see this play out.
I don't think I could sleep no matter what.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, no,
Especially if it comes in waves. I would like that.
I'm going to get a camera running.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that too. Yeah. Just be recorded. God damn.
So I really wrestled with this one. I actually, like, my ideal would be the transformation process length of A and the aftermath of C, but that's not an option I can pick. And I feel kind of like a heretic saying this, but I think I'm going to pick C. And the reason why is it's funny actually how you laid it out, Ace, because I almost thought about it I thought about the same implication, but from the opposite perspective. For me, if it was only like a day or like a week long, I think I would be like emotionally devastated from that, because in my mind, if I'm getting to pick like an anthropomorphic character, that's kind of like the ideal form for me. And so if I only got to experience that for like a day or a week, I think I would just be so like psychologically just like done under by the fact that I only got to experience it for that limited amount of time. Whereas with a year, I feel like I would have the time to properly enjoy it and then also properly grieve in advance of losing it. I think that would be the right amount of time to get to do and like experience the world in different ways. I feel pretty confident in like my decision as well, so I don't think I would be worried about like the bad element. I'm sure there would be things unexpected that I would have to anticipate and deal with, but I think the kind of like euphoria that would come with that, I think would outweigh the potential downsides, at least, you know, as I'm thinking about it now here in this moment. The thing that does gut me is the poof TF element. I hate that. I mean, I don't hate poof TF, but like, again, like I'm very much a process person, but I think the euphoria of getting to be a Lombax for a year would vastly outweigh for me not getting to experience the process. But that being said, again, I do actually like the month length. I will defend the month length in the sense that I actually love the idea of waking up every morning to something new, basically, even if it's only like a little bit. And
I can sense
I
the
don't know.
agony because you're kind of like justifying each answer and why you didn't pick it and being like, please let me explain. It's
Yeah.
okay. I swear
Are
it's
you-
okay.
It was. So, I've been thinking about this question all day since we got it, man. I was just like, fuck,
Man,
what am I gonna pick?
You're not explaining this to us. You're explaining it to yourself.
Yeah, I am explaining it to myself.
Yeah, it's okay. Look, man, anybody gives you like the proof option, go fuck yourselves, okay?
No, I don't think anyone actually will. I'm
certainly-
internally saying it to myself.
I certainly hope they don't, and if they thought it, fuck you anyway.
Yeah,
It's fine.
This is
So, go ahead.
all for fun. Don't put too much stock into like whatever answers you have or what other people's answers are. If you like,
Yeah, be a Lombax. This is a question for you. It's not for anybody else to fucking dictate your answer. Be a Lombax for a year. Oh shit! All right. Do you need like a supplement? Do you need me to go in the stores for you?
I don't know. I mean, that's all part of the fun of what I would have to navigate, I guess. But I would embrace those challenges. So
Just saying.
once I get big ears and a tail. So.
And hey, nobody ever said that you couldn't decide to do it again because we can apply whatever setting we want.
That's true.
But of course we are.
True.
But there is a finality to this. But if you want to feel better about it, just think, well, maybe I could endeavor to do this again.
Yeah, that would be nice. I can just sample all three of the options along the way. You know.
Yep. But I did answer it as a one-time only sort of thing, just so people know. That's how I picked it. Did you pick it the same way, Ace?
yeah. No, I thought of it about the same way as like
Okay.
a one-time dealio.
All
Me
right.
too. So, awesome. Well, that was all of the many questions I had for you, Ace. I don't know if you have any questions for us.
Let's see. Actually, K-Libra. What would you say are your artistic inspirations? What did you draw from when you were getting into art and all that, and dictated your particular approach to your work? Like for me, I was very much inspired by like anime and manga and a lot of comic books. So I feel like you can see a bit of that, especially in my work.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm always interested in what guides the style of other artists. So I'd like to know what is yours.
It's complicated. It's a bit of a layered answer, so I'll do my best to keep it coherent and brief. I too was inspired by anime. Tenchi Muyo to me was like the coolest stuff ever because I love the concepts in that show. I watched it again like last year, the OVA, and I love the ideas. I love the beautiful execution of some of these things. The character designs, you could say whatever, but I really liked how they look. I thought everybody was really pretty and everything like that. So I wanted to try to start drawing things like that show. Of course, you show it to an art teacher, and art teacher is like, well, things don't really look like that or whatever. I understand like why people get apprehensive about seeing the kids starting to draw that way. But then, it's like, oh yeah, realism. How do you depict somebody? It became very interesting to me. I keep thinking of the ad I saw on the bus, and it was just an extremely sketchy, messy drawing of like a lady in repose, just kind of laying on her side. You knew she was wearing something, but it really made me click that, wow, you could actually tell people a lot by just with just like what looked like scribbles to people. You could tell a lot with what is arguably a lot of mess, and I found that fascinating, and I wanted to think that I could do stuff like that. Peering into realism was something that kind of came actually a little bit later, but I started to appreciate human body and representing that. So stuff like Renaissance painting, I like Baroque shit a lot. I like stuff from that kind of period, with the light and the color and the contrast. Bright lights, deep darks, rich colors, stuff like that. I love that stuff. All that stuff started to build, so I wanted to keep piling that stuff on to each other, and then of course we're TF Podcast, so I wanted to see the more realistic stuff from like movies. Like, I don't know, I would think of Species and stuff, but like, that wasn't like as like grindy, crackly changes and stuff like that, like I wanted to see. But I always wanted to express that, and then I saw other artists doing it, and I know people have compared me to Griff. Oh my god! But like people have compared my work to his, which I'm just like, holy shit, that's weird to do. Don't. But also like one that really kind of actually spurred me before that was Ranzab. And Ranzab has these like really visceral, heavy, drastic changes that are like bordering to me on throbbing quotations ugly. But that is the kind of thing that I was just like, yeah, that's the thing. And so that is kind of how my style like goes. There's like the desire for like intricate stuff that may be kind of otherworldly. Got that from Tenchi, and that's in other ideas now. But like the messiness is something that I really wanted to embrace. So if I have like a painterly look, that's why I kind of hold on to it. Then there's the posing, which I really love from like Renaissance work, and my color choices. And then there are like a barrage of movies and shit like that. But for people who could look somebody up, you could look at Ranzab and Griff, and they're probably like two of like the biggest influences. Of course, I have looked at many other artists and started to glean from them and notice how they do things and wanted to incorporate it, whether it's like toony stylized or very, very realistic. But if they have something to express, I've been taking it in. So there you go. I hope that's satisfactory, but not like incoherent, rambly.
Oh no, I totally grasp what you've been putting down, and that's fascinating. It's always, like I said, it's always really cool to hear the things that an artist collects from in order to make their own personal mark and statement with their work.
Yeah, so there you go. Those are the broad strokes. And like, I don't know, I agree with you, because it is cool to know that Zil, for instance, drew stuff from like another artist like Foxxy, and like, oh, you can't tell, but that's how it is with art. You never really know like why an artist does something, do you? You just kind of assume that they had that in mind. There are artists that I won't name who I look at their stuff, I'm like, they started doing that because of me. I know that. They still do the thing that I did when I first met them, because that's the influence I left on them. Thank you for the question, by the way.
Yeah, that was a great question. Well, awesome. Yeah. So if people are looking for you online, Ace, where can they find you?
Let's see. I'm trying to update my fur affinities more often now. Mm-hmm. So I got two of them now. I've got my TFSential fur affinity, and I also have an AceSential fur affinity, which I need to upload more stuff on. TFSential for my transformation work, and AceSential for my non-transformation work. And definitely check out my AceSential one. I love that people like my I'm really happy that people love my transformation stuff. But I also draw a bunch of other stuff too. You might check it out. You might like it.
Please do that, people. Please.
Yes,
please take a glance at people's non-transformation focused stuff, because that's a part of them too. And if you like that part, you may find a lot of other resonance in the other things. Please.
A lot of the stuff that I've been doing with like Sonic stuff mostly stems from my interest in the comics specifically, and the TF stuff just happened to play off of that. It wasn't TF first, and then the comics or Sonic,
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see, and I also have my Twitter accounts. It's on Twitter, TFSential. Is that the right one?
Yeah, looks like
okay,
it.
Cool. Yeah, God, having to fucking maintain a bunch of different accounts now. Blue Sky, or as I like to pronounce it, Bisky.
I like Bisky. Bisky's very good.
And there's also, of course, the Mastodon.
Yes.
Meow.social at AceSential. I imagine that these can just start popping up across the screen or whatever, however you're going to present this.
They'll be in the show notes.
They'll be in the description. So please look in the description for all of these links. Don't feel pressured to rewind constantly and try to ask for the spelling of it.
Yeah.
And of course, there is the last one should be my Tumblr. And bam, there you go. Man, Amazing. That's a lot of links.
Splendid.
No, they're helpful. I mean, again, as we all scattered to the wind to some degree, it's good to know that you're in many places and keeping it active. Because, gosh, I struggle to maintain a blue sky and a mastodon. So, like, good on you for having so many.
Or don't maintain them. Fuck it.
That's always a valid answer too.
Oh, yeah. And also, check out the Summertown project, Summertown Mall. Something that me and a couple of my friends, written by one friend, Subliminal. It's tangentially TF related, and I think it might be to a lot of people's interests. This is this project in which that I made Rowena for initially.
Isn't it kind of like an isekai to some degree?
Yeah, it's a bit like an isekai. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Nice.
So you got a bunch of our characters there. You can see some of my work up there, and yeah, it's just a slowly growing project, and hopefully we can share more of it as time goes on.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing more. But
awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on again. It's
thank you for
a wonderful
having me.
blast from the past, and I'm glad that you were down to come on again. It's been a delight to have you, so much appreciated.
Agreed. Yeah.
Thank you for having me, and as always, and it was a pleasure to talk with both of y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed this very extended episode. I hope that you all get some good rest, drink water, get in your exercise for the week, keep an open mind, and stay TF, and we'll see you back here again next week.
Yep, you are not alone in this abyssal darkness.
All right.
Good night, everybody.